They expect you to stay quiet, to swallow hidden fees, put up with faulty products, and accept poor service as just the way it is. But you can demand better. Stand up, speak up, because with Which on your side, you can say no to bad business, buy with confidence, and get the service you deserve. Which, the power in you. Find out more at which.co.uk.
Are more flights being disrupted than ever before? And is alcohol to blame? Hello, I'm James Rowe and welcome to Which Shorts, the podcast that gives you a free weekly insight into our magazines. Today I'm bringing you a piece that Trevor Baker wrote for the January-February issue of Which Travel, all about the behaviour of passengers on airlines. In recent years, fights and arguments have become more common, but it's not just the amount of alcohol being consumed that's considered to be the problem. Here's Trevor's piece, adapted for the podcast, this week read by Erica McCoy.
When Helen Cleaver boarded a flight from Stansted to Ibiza, her heart sank as she walked up the steps. "I was one of only about 4 passengers," she told us. "Almost everyone else seemed to be going on a stag do. Lots of the men were drunk and rowdy before we even took off. You could smell the alcohol coming off them. Once in the air, a fight broke out in the aisles. One young man had blood pouring down the side of his face as a fellow passenger had taken a bite out of his ear. He was so drunk," says Helen, "that I'm not sure he even noticed." When the plane landed, Spanish police stormed on board and dragged the offenders away, still drunkenly kicking and screaming. And incidents like this are on the rise. In 2019, according to official Civil Aviation Authority statistics, there were 390 occasions where airlines reported difficulty in controlling intoxicated, violent or unruly passengers. By 2024, it was well over 1,000. These aren't just drunks shouting and fighting like in Helen's experience. That incident may not have even been recorded. The airlines are only required to inform the CAA about the most serious incidents. That's when crew members are physically abused, flights have to be diverted, or passengers restrained in their seats. So what's the problem? Well, one former British Airways cabin crew member said that every crew member I've ever worked with agreed that banning alcohol would be a simple fix for most onboard violence. However, they made the point that airlines and airports around the world profit too much from the sales of alcohol to make any changes. In 2019, when we first reported on the issue of disruptive flights, the government, along with the airlines and airports, launched the One Too Many campaign. It warned of fines and prison time for people who get drunk and cause trouble on planes. Airports also promised to curb people drinking too much in their bars and pubs. EasyJet told us that since then, it's made a concerted effort to crack down on problem passengers. Ryanair has spoken out in its condemnation of drinking culture at airports. Yet, both airlines have run prominent drink promotions in the last couple of years. "Summer is finally here," Ryanair's press team announced in May 2024. And what better way to kick off your summer holidays than with a delicious cocktail from Ryanair's new in-flight cocktail menu. EasyJet, meanwhile, had a premium lager promotion this summer. Passengers were encouraged to send a selfie of themselves enjoying a Birra Moretti on board an EasyJet flight for a chance to win a trip to Italy. When we asked EasyJet about this, it said that it permits drinking in moderation, and the ad in question encouraged people to just have one drink. Industry body Airlines UK, whose members include BA, EasyJet, Jet2 and Ryanair, told us that it has a zero-tolerance approach to disruptive behaviour. But Helen Cleaver didn't see evidence of this zero-tolerance approach on board her flight to Ibiza. The rowdy group were already drunk when they boarded the plane, but cabin crew continued to serve them more alcohol before the fight broke out. When Helen asked the cabin crew, "Why do you keep serving them when they're already drunk?" the beleaguered flight attendant responded, "They can get nasty if we don't." It's always the cabin crew who are in the front line in dealing with aggression or violence. The flight crew aren't allowed to leave the cockpit during disruptions, so flight attendants are on their own. The reality is that there's often little they can do. But it's not just booze that's the problem. When we asked Witch members about disruptive incidents, they told us about plenty of drunks, abusive passengers, and bad language. But we also heard about smaller, more niggling incidents like squabbling over flight seats, passengers taking up more than their fair share of space, elbows extending beyond the armrest, and failure to control children. Part of the reason why so many of these small annoyances are now turning into full-blown arguments and even violence is because of how much more stressful and confrontational air travel has become. A study in China concluded that there were 3 things that made violence more likely: long delays, passenger density at the boarding gate, and night flights. The cabin crew we spoke to had no doubt that delays had a huge impact. Some passengers would end up drinking for far longer than planned in the bar. Every year in our airport survey, we report on security queues, the struggle to find seats, and the overcrowding that bedevils travel at peak times. In our last issue, we reported on the confrontational cabin bag wars, as airline gate staff pull passengers from the gate queuing to challenge them over the size of their cabin bag. It's often done rudely, as passengers are threatened with fines. Even more significant are the psychological effects of trying to squeeze ourselves into even more cramped seats. Over the last 50 years, the average seat pitch has decreased by 4 inches. You can reduce but not eliminate the likelihood that you face air rage on your next trip. Fly from a more relaxed airport. We review UK airports every year. Choose an airline with friendly staff and fewer cancellations or delays. We review these every year too. We sent our story to the airlines we mentioned. Ryanair denied that it had a significant role to play in reducing alcohol consumption. The problem is not drinking on board 1-hour flights, it said. The excessive drinking occurs in airport terminals where no limits are placed on alcohol consumption, especially during flight delays. EasyJet said, "Our focus is on the safety and well-being of our customers and crew on board." It said both their ground crew and cabin crew were trained to deny boarding and refuse the sale of alcohol where necessary. British Airways, meanwhile, didn't respond to our request for a comment.
That brings to an end another podcast from Which. There's loads more for you to read about everything we discussed today. Just head to the episode description for more useful everyday advice. There you'll also find an exclusive offer for podcast listeners like you to become a Which member for 50% off the usual price, giving you access to our product reviews, our app, one-to-one personalised buying advice, and every issue of Which magazine across the year. Plus, your membership helps us to make life simpler, fairer and safer for everyone. If you'd like to know when we release a new episode, then make sure you press subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you can be one of the first to listen. And for any questions, comments or anything in between, follow us on social media at WhitchUK or email us podcasts@which.co.uk. Goodbye.
They expect you to stay quiet, to swallow hidden fees, put up with faulty products, and accept poor service as just the way it is. But you can demand better. Stand up, speak up, because with Which on your side, you can say no to bad business, buy with confidence, and get the service you deserve. Which, the power in you. Find out more at which.co.uk.